Chris, I don't care what you say. Bean Dad was a bad dude. Anyway, hey, welcome back to another episode of Around Comics. I am Brian Salazar. That is Christopher Niesman. Thank you for listening to our little silly podcast show here. We have an episode. We have an episode for you today. We have, I don't know if I can't really say
an episode.
It will be an episode. That's all we can guarantee you is there will be talking.
There will be.
And about a comic book.
Yeah, and Tom will be here in a little bit. We're gonna talk about Kill Lock.
The Kill Lock.
I'm looking forward to dissecting that a little bit, like an artisan,
robot. Yeah, exactly.
How you doing, bud?
I'm good. I'm pretty good. I'm back in. You know, it's funny. Like I was off for like 13 days in a row. I had vacation time just kind of built up, and so I just took it at the end of the year. So I was off all through Christmas and New Year's. But as much as it was, nice to have a break, I didn't really go anywhere and do anything. I was just sort of, bumming around the house and hanging out with my kids, playing Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing. And back at work this morning, and it's like, there is a certain, like, once you do something long enough where it's just your habit and that schedule. But it's like it's so much easier for me to like eat healthy, make sure I work out,
You're
just
a creature
like
habit. You got to
I'm a bit of a creature of habit at this point. And as much as I don't like necessarily like work, the getting up, even when I found that like back in COVID, because I was home for 3 months with COVID. And even then, the first few weeks I was just like, I'll roll out of bed, 5 minutes after I need to be up, and nobody's paying attention, that kind of thing. But then it got to be like sort of depressing. And I was like, okay, no, I'm going to get up, shower, get dressed,
work out,
have a routine. I'm going to have a routine, because if I don't have a routine, it goes south.
I was the same way until I started running. And then once I started getting up and running, like at 5:30 in the morning, that kind of saved me. It was that, because I needed it.
Yeah. It's funny because I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who would complain about not having, like somebody who's retired is like, is miserable. But I can kind of understand it, because if you don't have something to do, if you don't if you have nothing to do, it's really not much fun.
Yeah, that's why they walk in malls and that kind of stuff. Walmart greeters. Yeah, you gotta have something to do.
I want to do nothing. I don't want to do nothing. I just don't want to do what other people want me to do.
Yeah, apparently, if you're like my dad, you just work on all of your wife's gardening and landscaping projects.
Well, there you go. That's just keeping busy, man. Just
keep exactly. So what I'll do in my retirement is reread all of the comics that I've forgotten about,
which will be all of them.
Yeah, because isn't that great? Is we talked about this as you get older. Basically, when I go back and reread comics, it's like the first time, because I can't remember what they were about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when we went back,
it's like being a goldfish, man.
When we went back and talked about Transmet, it was like, I really don't remember this at all. I mean, I'm experiencing it from a completely different perspective, because one, I'm a lot older and I probably understand it better, but it's just like,
the recollection of it. I mean, there's like the gold standards that I remember, but I get, it's like Phoenix Saga. I feel like I remember that story so well. I bet you if I went back and reread it, I would feel differently about it.
Oh, I'm sure. How could you not? You're not the same person you were when you first read that book.
Because I read that thing so many times. Speaking of reading stuff, I got this in the mail today. This is the Criminal Volume 3. I didn't notice that I forgot that the all the other Criminal stuff was on the Icon imprint. Which that was Marvel's kind of their almost like Vertigo imprint, right?
Yeah, it was a way for them to get big name creators to sign exclusives, because then they could still do their own creator-owned stuff that they would end up retaining ownership to.
Yeah, so this is
it started with Bendis, really.
Yeah, so this is the first one, and Straczynski, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, this is the first one under Image, and it's great. Except it also it's got Bad Weekend and My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies are in here, which I also have in hardcover.
Oh,
so I've got some extra books out there. If we'll have to come up with a contest or something.
There you go. Well, we've been talking a little bit today. We were talking about the possibility of Patreon, doing a Patreon page and doing some additional episodes and that kind of stuff. And maybe that could be a tier where it's like you get, I have enough books. I could easily give people stuff for free.
I have 3 copies of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wants an Absolute Vertigo? Yay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got the Baltimore, the Plague Ships. I think I have 3 copies of that damn thing.
Maybe that's what we'll do. Like, a tier where you're every month that you're a member of the tier, you're put into a drawing to win a free book from our overstock of crap
from the collection of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I also picked up Reckless, so I'm ready to.
Did you read it?
That. So it was Brubaker Phillips Day.
Did you read Reckless? Did you read it?
No, I just got it today.
Okay.
Today. That with the criminal. Nice.
Yeah, I got the hardcover as well. I love that. That's what they're. Well, we talked about this last week. I think all their future stuff is just going to be like this, just hardcovers.
Yeah,
which I'm fine with. Give me a hardcover. I'll buy this every 6 months. One of these from you guys.
Yeah, I've got quite the Brubaker Phillips wall starting to build up here on the old shelves.
Well, they are definitely one of those pairings where it's like, I'm just going to buy this sight unseen.
Yeah, it's
whatever you guys put out, I'm going to buy it.
It's like Azarillo and Rizzo. It's
same. Yeah. I was just going to ask, what other groups or what other artists or writers are you sort of sight unseen? Darwin was always one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anything Darwin Cook did, I bought.
Yeah, but as far as like teams though, like creative teams, writer, artist. I mean, we grew up on Claremont Burn, but I don't even I don't know if we thought of that as a team. Yeah,
I'm trying to even think of other teams that I really consider.
Yeah, it's like
anymore.
What would be the prerequisite? Would it be like would it be like a number of comics or years together? Because I look at stuff like Jodorowsky and Mobius, but I don't know if I would. Did they do enough to be considered like an all-time great team or something like that?
I think just the quality of their work puts them there, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know that you don't have that many.
Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams.
Well, I'm talking about today though.
Today's
stuff that comes out now that you were like, oh, I'm going to buy that because it's Brubaker and Phillips. I'm just going to buy that. Rizzo and Azarillo, although they don't really do much, they haven't done anything really lately, but
they got a series coming out right now, don't they?
Do they? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, I'll have to look. Oh, but yeah, I think so.
Eastman and Lard,
huh? The what?
Eastman and Lard.
Eastman and Lard. I was gonna say like Greg Rucka and Michael Lark, but I really buy that book more because of that, Lazarus. I buy because of the whole package, and they haven't really done that much outside of that book. I mean, I love.
Well, let's be honest. You're going to buy pretty much anything Greg does.
I don't buy everything he does. There's an occasional book that I still have to catch up on, like Black Magic and a few others. But yeah, for I know a long time we probably would have both agreed like Bendis and Omin.
I was going to say like Sienkiewicz and anyone. Pretty much like
Sienkiewicz and anyone.
Yeah.
Great artist writer teams, Tom.
Oh, well, let's drop.
Like current ones.
Yeah, we're thinking like, because we were saying like Brubaker and Phillips, pretty much anything they do, I'm going to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Azarillo and Rizzo, if they do anything together, I'm going to buy that. kind of thing. But I was trying to think of other teams that are even out there. How about you people watching? Anyone out there watching? What's a great modern day comic book duo or team up? Paul Miotti and Connor, is that considered? Amanda Connor and
do they do enough together?
They just do the one, I think, but I don't know.
Yeah.
They've done a bit. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other great duos.
I'm sure it'll come to us. We'll throughout the Jason Aaron and RM Guara. Anything those guys do together. And they worked on multiple projects together.
I'm not that big a fan of Guara, to be honest.
You're not a fan of what? What? Really?
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm a big Jason Aaron fan where I'll buy just about anything he does, but I'm not that big a fan of Guara.
Wow, really? That is surprising to me.
I mean, I don't hate it.
Yeah, just too loose.
I like it for certain stories. I don't think that it works with everything.
Okay, well, sure. Yeah, that's okay. I can see that. I'll tell you, well, now that Tom is here. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
And 2021 does kind of suck, but I mean, we're like 5 days in. I mean, give it a chance.
We lost Tanya Roberts, man. We lost
her, and we got her back. No, and then we lost her. She actually died.
She did actually die. Well, according to her
did
spouse,
she die and then not die and then die again?
She died and they were wrong, and then she did die.
The reports of her death were
correct.
Premature.
Sure,
they were premature.
Sure, but eventually correct.
Yeah.
Eventually.
As far as we know, it could change. That could change tomorrow. I mean, it is 2021. Anything can happen.
Dead? Have we found out yet? Oh, that's tomorrow.
It's not.
Dr. Dre is in intensive care.
What?
He had a brain aneurysm.
Jesus. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Sorry to break the news to you guys.
Yeah, I'm a little sad about Marianne.
Who? Marianne?
She lived a full life.
She did live a full life.
Marianne who?
From Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. Oh, did she die?
Yeah, she died a couple days ago.
Oh, well, I didn't even know she was alive.
First time.
I killed Bruce Dern in a.
Saw that. Bruce Dern's alive.
I didn't know. I could have sworn he died a month ago or 2 months ago. I could have sworn he died.
It reminds me of a celebrity roast I saw like 20 years ago, and I forget who the guy was roasting, but he said, and then Abe Vigoda, God rest his soul, and Vigoda's sitting in the audience.
Yeah, I was talking about The Burbs, the great 80s
movie.
I love that movie, and I don't think it gets nearly enough love. It is such a good movie, and I don't think people really appreciate it for what it is. And I said in the late great Bruce Dern and Carrie Fisher, and Mario Muscar corrected me and said Bruce Dern not dead.
Yeah.
I watched that movie so many times. When I must have, the part where they're watching the guys bring the garbage bags out to their garbage can, and then they're beating it with a stick.
I've never seen that. I've never seen anybody drive the garbage to the curb and beat it with a stick. Have you seen that?
It is a great movie.
It's a terrific movie.
I finally got Marta watching What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh God, I love that show.
We're through the first season. We're in season 2, so it's.
I feel like I could rewatch that entire show again. And
it's an easy rewatch.
Well, there's so many jokes in it. Like
you miss so much of the subtle stuff. Guillermo, especially.
Yeah. Which one's your favorite?
Who's my favorite?
Who's your favorite character on the show?
Oh, Laszlo.
Laszlo's phenomenal. I what's her name kills me. I don't know.
Nadia.
God, some of the zingers, some of the one-liners she throws off fucking destroy me.
It was the episode with Laszlo and Mark Hamill with the Ricky Daytona.
Yeah, that was brilliance. That was genius.
25 minutes of the best TV I've watched in a really long
Ricky Daytona
TV. All right, hey, let's talk about Kill Lock. This was
all right.
This was my pick. Do we have a stinger?
Oh, sure.
You worked so hard on that, Sal.
Welcome to Chris's Trade Talks.
Because I know it took you like 4 days to put that little stinger together.
That little stinger,
actually,
Trade Talks.
This was actually inspired by you because you suggested the first issue when it came out, and I couldn't find it at my my local comic shop. And then I was flipping around online and saw that it seemed in like a pretty short amount of time that they had released the trade of the first story arc, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get it. And I read about half of it, and I was like, I'm gonna make this my Trade Talks because this is pretty awesome. And so that's what I did. Sal's got for the people that are listening to the audio only version of this, Sal's got some art up on the video feed here from the trade, and that's the first thing I would say is that this book is gorgeous. It is a beautiful book.
Yeah, we should say it's written and drawn and everything done by Livio Ramondelli.
That's why I wanted you to do that, because I didn't want to pronounce that.
I'm sure it's wrong, but that's the best I can do. But and I think he's done, like, I guess, Transformers work for IDW. I wasn't familiar with him before I saw the book, but that was one of the things that really attracted me to it when I saw the issue on the stand. I was just like, oh, this is something kind of different, and I love the robots, but it's sort of got a almost like a character designer or like a game designer feel to it to some degree.
It does almost feel like that will go back to that page. I mean, that looks like concept art from a video.
Mm-hmm.
It very much has a concept art feel to it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if there's any flaw to his art, it can get a little flat in a sense. Like I don't know. I think it works well with the robots, but some of the humanization of it is a little faltered. But I mean, it's a really terrific.
Yeah, he does. You know, from the artist standpoint, I do think that he is able to get the subject, the robots, to act pretty well. You know, that he does inflect a lot of emotion through them. And just to give you the very brief setup of the story is that, you know, it is all Marta just came in to tell me about Dr. Dre.
Thanks for interrupting the show for that, Marta.
Obviously upset. So anyway, the setup for the story is that this is a completely mechanical universe. I don't even think we ever saw anything like really organic, did we? Is there anything organic in the entire story?
I think they mentioned bunnies at one point, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't remember.
I don't even think I saw like a tree. I mean, it is
right.
Cities and then, you know, barren like moonscapes. So you never see really anything organic, and it is a sentient robot society. And I guess really instead of prisons, they have a penal system that's called the Kill Lock, where they will almost like a chain gang pair 4 robots together, and if one of them dies, then all of them die, and they just kind of like set them out. And as it's explained,
they say they usually banish them to like a shitty planet somewhere, and they're forced to, you know, behave or all die.
Yeah, and they always die because it's explained in one part that I'm sure we'll touch on that two could make it, 3 there's an outside chance, but whenever you have 4, that one of them always screws up.
Yeah, well, if you got four opinions, you know, like there's no chance you're gonna have
a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But this, this kill lock is embedded into them, and if one of them meets an untimely end, then all 4 of them will die. And so there's 4 robots in this kill lock. There's I guess it's probably easiest to describe them as you've got the soldier, the kind of blue collar laborer, a child, and I don't know, how do you describe the artisan?
He's an engineer. He's a creator, designer.
Yeah,
of other robots,
and a dick,
and a sociopath. He's psychotic and an asshole, and also
he's almost like the criminal. He's like, for a band of quote unquote criminals, he's like the serial killer. He's like the Hannibal Lecter of the.
But also, that he starts off that way, but by the end of it, there's a little more depth to him than just like that he's the murderer, which is the thing that I really quite enjoyed about this book. Is like he found a way, when you get to the end of the 6 issues, like legitimately the end of the 6th issue, you're like, like, okay, like that's definitely a twist.
Yeah,
what's gonna happen? Like it's like, oh, okay. Like the next 6 issues are going to be very different than the first 6 issues.
Well, what we should say too is like these are all like classes. There's like class of robots. So like there's all sorts of artisans. There's all sorts of worker class. There's all sorts of these warrior class, and they come from different places. And over the course of the 6 issues, you find out more and more of each of them. You initially kind of just find out a little bit of why they were put together. And it's interesting that, it doesn't really seem to have a degree of how bad you are or how many other robots you might or might not have killed. And then, like the sort of young, innocent robot who is just a defective unit who they've also put into this group. So you kind of have like you said, a blue collar guy that basically had a DUI. He was you have the kind of warrior cleric, army nut job, that just I don't want to give away what he did, but didn't follow orders. So he's sort of a AOL, soldier. You have the artisan class who, wanted to look deeper into the robots that he was creating and so just dissected them and then you have this this innocent kid who's kind of put in this whole situation and over the course of the 6 issues you find out more and more about each of them in the sense of both what their actions or what they're doing right now to try and survive and possibly find a way out of this situation, but also you find out the backstory. So I thought it was a really well done tale of kind of it, and I think I talked about this the first time I talked about the first issue. It was like, oh, I assumed it was sort of like they're gonna learn how to be like good robots by having to work together was sort of my assumption, or like that would be the kind of trope. And I was like, oh, that's not really what it's about necessarily. No. I mean, it is in some ways, but it isn't.
Yeah.
And like I said,
I think for the laborer, the blue collar, the alcoholic, whatever we want to call him. I mean, it is kind of a redemption story for him. Yeah, I think he's very conscious of trying to that there is redemption for him to be had in trying to save the child, the unfinished one. But yeah, it's talking about their backstories. What I liked is that it gave us a larger look at the classes that they came from, and that's where I think a lot of the world building came up. But yeah, back to your point about it's not a redemption tale for all 4 of them for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of story for all of them. It's a different arc for each one. I think has their own sort of arc. You know, redemption for him possibly. You know, the soldier one's an interesting one. The Wraith robot is an interesting one because he's sort of, you know, you kind of find out as you find out more about him, you understand him more, but then you also sympathize with him more. You sympathize with all the characters except for really the artisan. You know, like you don't really ever sympathize for him, but I found him the most like interesting.
And I think you also have a twist at the end that gives him maybe something beyond what you thought his motives were. You know, like where it's like, oh, okay, like you definitely get to the end and you're like, yes, he's like a sociopath murderer, but there's something to what he's doing that's bigger than that isn't necessarily make it a redemption story, but it definitely gives him a depth that's sort of like, oh, okay, like what's he like, what's his end game, you know, like it definitely sets it up for like a intrigue for like where the story is going to go. Like,
do you think that he changed as the book went on? Did you think that, or was that just all sort of the plan?
The artisan?
I don't know. It's tough because I think there's moments, at least art wise. I think, you know, he did a, you know, a great job of giving them moments of like of humanity in quotes, you know, like you could get an emotional feel from them at times. And I think there's moments where the artisan isn't totally the sociopath that you think he is, you know, like there's you know, definite moments where he's surprised or like he feels like he needs to, like, you know, he's a character who you feel like he's got some master plan, but not everything totally goes.
Do you feel that it's ever anything more than self-preservation for him, though?
I don't know. I think that's what this next story is about. Like, what is his, like, because you definitely are led to believe through the whole story that there isn't anything more to him. But then you get to the end and you're sort of like, oh, okay, like what is he?
He's after? Got a bigger game, and
there's something he's after that is bigger than what you thought. And
that's like, scary in some ways, because is it just revenge? Is it just, you know?
Yeah. And I would also say, like, art wise, he did a really good job of even though they're all robots, you can tell who's who. Yeah, like, there's only one time in the book where I got confused when there was a battle scene between robots. You know, that's to me always sort of like the classic like Transformer robot problem is when you have a fight scene, like if they're not people, can you always tell what's actually going on? You know,
like metal
faces. Yeah, like faces, you know, they do so much in storytelling of being able to be like, oh, that's the guy with the mustache. That's the guy with the, you know, with the eye patch, you know, like it's such an easy shorthand to like make characters feel different. That, you know, making these robots are sort of designed so differently help a lot, but also he does find a way to give them character to them, right? So there's only really one time where I'm like, what happened? Like, and I had to like look at it. Like,
the difference in the characters. Do we lose Sal? The difference in the characters, they actually kind of make fun of it, where they're trying to like sneak into the city, and the Wraith is just so big, and they've got him like covered in some sort of cloak.
Wear your cloak.
The artisan's like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
Cloaks suck.
There was a lot of humor in it too.
It's a funny book. Yeah.
It's very funny. A lot of jokes, a lot of like dry sort of wit to it, and definitely distinctive voices. Each of them, you know, were very distinctive voices, I thought. Other than maybe the the kid, even though
I mean the kid is the least interesting character in the book.
The least interesting, but also the least used, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And also the one that you kind of don't, he's sort of the mystery, right? Of like, why exactly is he here? You know, like the thing with the book that's interesting, right, is there's the plot story, right, of like, how are these guys going to get out of it? But then there's also the bigger thing of like, well, who made these robots? Why do you need a robot to open the door for a shuttle? You know, like, why are there workers? You know, like, why make this? You know, and that's not necessarily like the A plot to the comic, but it's like kind of in there, you know, like, why does the artisan exist? Like, why can't he know everything about the characters? Like, why does the Wraith exist? Like, it's like a kind of an undercurrent to the main story, but like obviously by the end becomes sort of like, oh, okay, like it's deceptively complex underneath what's like a pretty simple plot device of like the kill lock itself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it gives you enough information. It's smartly written in the sense of like it gives you enough information to question things and keep going, like keep turning the page, because it's like, okay, I want to know who these Wraith characters are. What is this? You know, with these, you know, really dangerous robots, or like you said, why does the artisan? You know, why would you make a robot like that, but then put him in this little frail body? And you know,
why would you make a laborer who feels anything?
Yeah, why would he have any emotions?
Why would you make a laborer to open doors? Why would why does that exist? You know, like,
right?
You know, why make children? Like, why is there unfinished?
Why make robots susceptible to addiction? You know,
yeah, like there's like there's that sort of like, what is happening, right? And they sort of
even the idea of like, wait a minute, if you're a robot, aren't you just following your programming? Like, what happened to the artisan to make him do what he did? And why him and not all the other artisans?
Yeah. You know, and they refer to the forgers, you know, as like their creators.
Right.
And like, you know, and it's sort of, it's never front and center, but it's dropped enough to be sort of like, why is this structured this way? Why do these things exist? So I thought that was really well done as well. I was just like, enough intrigue to that backstory of like, you got a really good chunk of story, but you certainly don't know everything,
right,
of what's going on. You know, if anything, you're sort of more intrigued about like, wait, why does this exist? Like, who made this? Why did, you know, I guess, which is the question for all of us. Why do any of us exist?
Exactly. Why do we exist? Who made us, Tom?
Yeah, exactly.
Which I should probably jump in here. This is published by IDW, and it's $24.99 US. So it's not a cheap trade. Certainly, you know, for me, I think that lived up to the price tag. My one complaint is that the binding kind of sucks on it. If you have the paper version, I had several pages fall out.
Damn, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that kind of bummed me out a little bit. So I don't know
if that IDW. What the F?
That's some bullshit, man.
And so I paid $25 for a trade together. So, but yeah, I had several pages fall out of it.
I'd take it back.
I'd throw it at him.
Throw the book at him.
You call this binding?
I had to glue it back in.
They're loose pages. This is worthless.
This is the worst binding I have ever witnessed.
But if you don't want to read the poorly bound version, once again, it is available on Hoopla, so you can jump on and read it there. We love the Hoopla.
Yeah, we do. It's great.
I love the Hoopla. Hoopla's phenomenal.
Hoopla is great.
Hoopla saves me lots of money.
Sal, thank you for the initial recommendation on it. I loved it. I mean, this book was so in my wheelhouse of the, you know, futuristic world building sentient robot thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just like, oh, this is something different, and I picked it up and I started reading it, and just even like in the first couple of pages, I'm like, oh, this is really something really different. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like this is I haven't seen this before. And that's always, you know, I mean, more often than not, that's what I'm looking for in a comic book anyway, is like, oh, this is a new idea or something executed in a different way. And it was really intriguing of like, okay, what's going to happen to these guys? And the other intriguing thing about it to me was like, how do I feel about it? You know, like, how do I feel about the end of this book? How do you guys feel? Like, because it's like none of them are. It's such a weird thing because you humanize them because, you know, they want you to. You know, he wants you to humanize them, and we naturally just kind of do that as human beings. And so you start to sort of like go, well, okay, is the worker guy, he got fucked up at work and he fucked up, but I mean, he's not a bad guy, you know. It's like the Wraith is like, okay, he's a religious zealot, but he's really badass, you know. You know what I mean? And even the artisan is like, I gotta admit that fucking ability for him to just like look at another robot and see its weaknesses is fucking cool. Like he's just like,
very badass.
And he's funny and just like, you know, the most sort of like witty ball buster of the group. So I just sort of all automatically like him. But it's like, wait a minute, these guys are all sentenced to die. You know, or are they supposed to learn something? You know, like what's the point here? I don't know. It's an interesting.
I mean, they're all like Cool Hand Luke in, you know, a certain way. You know, it's like they broke the law, but you know they're all have their, you know, things that you like about them and, you know, respect about them.
Well, what did you guys think about the ending? And not to give it away, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but like for me, it was like on one hand, I'm like, well, that's a really wicked idea, like that's a really wicked ending, but then I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if I want that to happen. Like, you know, like I don't think this is a good thing.
I thought it was a great twist at the end of like, because it definitely sets up sort of like I said, like the next 6 issues are not going to be like the first 6 issues, you know, like, which is kind of exciting where it's like, oh, okay, we got that chunk of story, like now what happens next, you know, like now that the rules have kind of changed and like big time, and you're sort of like, oh, okay, like, you know, one thing, you know, one storyline sort of ended in a sense. Now what's the next part of the story? What's the next? Yeah, it was.
And you know what I really appreciated about it too was that even with that, like even if he didn't do another arc, it's a good science fiction story. Like even that end, like if he never did anything else, like those 6 issues is a solid science fiction story in and of itself. Yeah,
it's cool. I liked it a lot.
Is it going to have a second volume?
I don't even know. To be honest, I'm not sure.
There's only have been 6 issues, and I haven't seen a 7th issue. So if that's the end of the story, I feel like there's a little empty part of my heart that's never going to be filled.
I don't know. We'll have to get whatever his name is, Ramondelli. What was his name? Lucas?
Livio
Ramondelli. Livio Ramondelli. We'll have to get him on the line or something and figure out if we're going to get some more Killlock or not.
Yeah.
Or is that all the Killlock we get?
Around Comics listeners, find out for us.
Hunt down Livio Ramondelli. He sounds, is he Italian? Is he
that sounds Italian.
Sounds kind of Italian, right?
He's Italian.
He's Italian.
Yeah, there you go. So awesome. So thank you for the recommendation, Sal, and I'm glad everyone sounds like we all enjoyed it. Thumbs up on that one. So I'll tip my cap. You get like half credit on that one.
Well, I mean, I did find it.
Yes, you did. You did find it.
I had read it before you picked it.
Tom, it is your pick for our next trade talk.
Wait. Trade Talk.
Didn't have to remind you.
Is that it? Okay. Yeah. I'm picking something that just recently came out, like very recent. House of L, Book 1, The Shadow Threat by Claudia Grace, the writer, illustrated by Eric, and I'm gonna slaughter his name, Eric Zuitsky. It would be my guess.
That sounds me.
And it's Claudia Gray is a young adult author, a YA author, and this is sort of a different approach to talking about Krypton, as it's sort of like a story about two teens on Krypton as the world is ending, right? So like kind of a different go at Krypton. And I was just I was literally flipping through Hoopla thinking about what to pick, and I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool and kind of different, and I don't know if I'm gonna like it.
I think this came out like today.
Yeah, I think it might come out. Yeah, and part of what intrigues me about it, right, is like we talked about this with like Doom Patrol and with the Hulk, and it's like, what's like the definitive version of Krypton? I feel like there is no definitive version of Krypton. Yeah. Like literally, Krypton changes anytime anybody new gets a shot to like talk about Krypton. Like this, Krypton blows up, but it's always something else. Oh, Brainiac did it. No, actually, the Kryptonians did. Like
the origin of Krypton
is always in flux in a sense, and it has been for decades since Crisis. Essentially, like there is no definitive Krypton. So I'm also always interested when someone from outside comics gets a crack at writing one of these, like if what that's going to feel like, someone who's not beholden necessarily to how we've talk about Krypton or have experienced it in previous books, and knowing that it's perhaps aimed at a slightly different audience, like what kind of approach
I feel like the John Byrne Krypton from like Man of Steel became the template of Krypton and that story. But that's what 1980 87.
Yeah, but even then every single detail of that has been fucked with by somebody at some point.
Okay.
Like why Krypton blew up. Sometimes it's blown up because I think Bendis changed it when he started writing Superman. Like anytime anyone gets a Johns has changed it. Like once you leave, once Earth 1 Superman is gone.
In the Bendis version, it blew up just because everyone was talking too much.
Everyone was talking too much. Once the Earth 1 Superman went away and that sort of accumulated Krypton history was gone, like it's kind of like free for all. It always blows up. No one's, stopped it from blowing up, but it's always different things, different reasons,
We know the end. We know
the end, right? And if there's ever been a time where we can identify more with a planet full of people who are too dumb to realize the world is dying, I think it's us right now.
Pretty accurate.
Very in tune with our with the current reality.
This is an interesting choice for them to put a well-known YA author on a title that is so sort of tangentially even connected to Batman or to Superman. Like are kids like 12, 13-year-old kids that this is aimed at going to have any idea what Krypton is, or that it's Superman, or even give a shit that it's Superman? Like it's such an odd, to me it's like an odd
it's like, I wonder what this is gonna be. But then you thought, like, part of me thinks too, it's like, well, it's what does it feel like all these big YA books that have broken through are about? It's about dystopia worlds and
True.
How young people deal with it, and Krypton.
I don't know her work very well. I don't know what her.
I haven't. Obviously, I'm not a young adult. Not that stops people from reading YA novels. She did some Star Wars stuff too. But yeah, it's intriguing, which is kind of why I picked it, because I was sort of like, what an interesting, strange thing. I wonder if it'll be good.
Oddity.
What an oddity. I'm intrigued by it. So we'll see.
House of L.
The art looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I believe it just came out. Let's see. I was gonna share my screen here. We can actually show it. There we go. Claudia Gray, Eric Zawodsky, House of L, The Shadow Threat, Volume 1. It says Book 1, so I'm assuming they're doing more than one.
More.
Authors can't do anything that aren't trilogies, right? Like you have to have a minimum of 3 in the pocket before you can get published.
Mm-hmm.
But it's on. It just came out, but it also is on Hoopla. I downloaded it on my Hoopla app today.
All right, cool.
So I will add that to the Google Book group that we created. We have a Google Book, or not Google
Amazon.
Book. Amazon. We have an Amazon Book Club, and we also have a Goodreads group. So either one of those you can join, or both if you'd like, and you can interact with us, and it'll tell you what our current picks are, what our previous picks are, and you can suggest books to us for future Trade Talk talks. You can go to aroundcomics.com. There's a link on there that there's links to both of these groups on there, as opposed to me trying to tell you what the links are, because they're kind of long and stupid. So I'm not going to do that. But if you go to aroundcomics.com, our website, at the top of the menu, it says Trade Talks. And underneath there are 2 links: Amazon Book Club, Goodreads book club. And so you can join those up and maybe talk to us about what you're reading. Yeah. How's that sound?
Cool. And you can check us out on the Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And I registered Around Comics on TikTok this week.
Well, Pick O'Brien thinks that Krypton is a new TikTok dance. That's what
could be
blowing up.
And the Around Comics TikTok does exist now.
Oh God, I can't wait to ignore that completely. I don't have TikTok. That's
I still don't know what to do with it.
They wouldn't let me sign in. I gave them my birth date. I said too old, and they won't let me sign up for it.
Get out of here, dude. What are you
Get out of here, Grandpa.
Yeah, what are you doing? Get out of here.
Pervert.
I obviously had to lie.
Send you over to Facebook.
Yep. So there you go. That's our talk on Kill Lock and Tom's upcoming Trade Talks. We got anything else tonight that we want to chat about?
It will kill.
Have you guys seen this?
The end of the eras.
You mentioned it. What is that?
So I just bought it with some gift cards I got. It's DC through the 80s, the end of eras, a storied survey of the decade that changed comics forever, right? So it's volume 1. I think they're going to do 3 volumes of this. It's about DC Comics in the 80s. And this first one is really about like what comics, like what it was like before Crisis. So like there's a section of superhero stories, there's a section of war stories, right? And but it's not just comics reprinted. There's essays by people in here. You know, like Paul Levitz is the editor of it.
Paul Levitz and Roy Thomas, and
but it's really interesting because like it's written. All these essays are written very much in a sense of like, you know, a lot of times when you see people like write a foreword to a book, they talk about how much they love the stories that follow. Whereas these essays are much more about like, this is what it was like. You know, this is, you know, I'm looking up some of the examples here. Right? So like they had Elliot Megan writes a thing about Julie Schwartz, right? And essentially is about like Julie Schwartz wouldn't let DC Comics become modern. Like in a nice way, he says it, but like it is sort of like, hey, you know why a lot of these superhero books at DC kind of felt this way was because of that. And then they have a mystery section, and then they have just about war comics, and they have Andy Kubert writes about war comics, you know, like his dad, you know, so it's like a lot of really interesting, you know, and they have stuff about, they have some pages from like the style guide to the DC superheroes, and they have they got comic book strips in here, Superman comic strips, like just to like give a sense of what that is. And then they also have Alan Moore's pitch for Twilight of the Superheroes. Like it's sort of like, attempt at like a huge like industry-wide crossover. And I've read pieces of this before, but it's really interesting because it's just funny to read Alan Moore dissect crossovers so succinctly and like really smartly, and like see that, not only is Alan Moore super imaginative, he totally gets why people like comics and like like what makes things work, and like why, like, hey, by the way, if you're gonna get all the heroes together, you gotta do this or people won't like the story. And like he just dissects it so like strategically of like what you got to do if you're going to do one of these crossovers. And he's referring to like letters that Paul Levitz has written him about like doing a crossover. And it's just really, it's like multiple pages of Alan Moore writing about like, why did, if we do this, does this make Dark Knight not happen in the future? Like he sits down and like thinks all these things out, and like it's just really cool.
There was a time when Alan Moore was a pretty big comic book fan.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing you can walk away from this is like this dude like thought about this a lot and really dissected it, and obviously just super smart and super sharp. And they have Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow is reprinted in here, which is sort of Alan Moore's farewell story to the Earth One Superman, where he gets to kill everybody and then say goodbye, let Superman go. And they have like a He-Man comic in here. It's just like a crazy mix of stuff that's really collected in a way that I don't think I've seen either the big two, like they'll collect stuff in a sense of like, here's an omnibus of like, here's a huge chunk of Teen Titans, or here's an artist edition to show off the art. But like, this is really just about like, it's not a huge book, it's like,
manageable.
Yeah, it's manageable, but it's also just about context of like, hey, if you don't remember what comics were like back then, there was war comics. You could buy a war comic, right? Like,
can you believe it?
Yeah, or there's mystery comics, right? Like, what were those? Like, it was just a really, interesting read.
Well, that was one of the things I had gotten a hold of after watching a episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe. They had talked about the Marvel Vault book, and it's.
I have the DC one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it out here, but it's like it's the same sort of thing. Like it's just really neat, sort of collection of not just comic book stuff, but behind the scenes and stuff and just all sorts of things about Marvel Comics through the ages. And it's just like a fun, really walk through that stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting. It's like reading. Knowing that Paul Levitz kind of put this together, and he also he worked on that Toshin book about DC Comics. It kind of struck me, and this will seem like I'm pitting two people against each other. Paul Levitz kind of feels like the opposite side of the coin of Stan Lee, where Stan Lee is sort of like the part of comics that's like the boisterous, like the huckster. Kind of a little bit. I mean, that makes it sound bad. I mean, I think Stan Lee was a genius, right? And Paul Levitz is sort of that other side of like sort of the studious, like maybe a little more like
it's
sober.
The editor and the marketer. I mean,
it's just really interesting to like.
Paul Levitz is like the librarian of comics.
Yeah. He's like knows it. He kind of went through. He was a creator, and then he also did all the business stuff. So like he sort of has this wide view and was sort of there for all these sort of things that were momentous events. So, and it's just really cool to read these essays that aren't about like pumping up this book you're about to read. It's just more about like, hey, like war comics existed. And it was like a thing that people were into, and like mystery comics were a thing, and like it's easy to forget that context is gone, like to think that you could go pick up like a war comic someplace just seems so, like I know there are war comics, but like these were war comics for kids. You know, right. You know, like they were just mixed in with.
They weren't Garth Ennis war comics.
Oh, right. Yeah. It was just like a genre.
I've got a weird War Tales. It's one of my favorite original art pages. It's a Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and it's a weird War Tales. So it's a mix. It's a horror story and a war story. It's a World War II story about vampires. It's great. You know, I think the entire story was 4 pages.
Yeah, and even Paul Levitz's intro is like sort of like, hey, you know, as newsstands went away, things changed, and like you kind of get a sense of like, was it better? Was it worse? You know, like who knows? They're different, you know, like, but the idea of like, here, this is what it was like before, you know, like there was mystery comics for kids, like that were just like next to Plastic Man, which just seems, you know, on a newsstand that you could buy at. So it's like, it's just interesting. It was a book I had seen people talking about, and I was like, I didn't see anything about it. And I picked it up, and it's find it super cool, a super interesting collection of like, you know, if you want to get your He-Man fix and your House of Mystery fix and your Jonah Hex mixed fix all at once. They're all collected in one
walk down memory lane.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of nostalgia, but like done. I think
I love the idea of the letters though, the giving you the context. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, it's like, yeah, this is my dad worked on war comics, you know, and like, yeah, I just think the things people write in here are super insightful, because I think like they're freed from, they're not pumping something up. They're just like giving the context of their own,
right.
like this is when I came into the business, you know, like James De Mateus writes a thing about like learning everything about comics from all these like awesome people, right? And it's like all just the context of what things were like in the early 80s without like sort of like being like, and that's why this collection is great. It's just, yeah, it's cool. Nice. I recommend it for anyone who likes
I might have to pick that up.
It's on Hoopla.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you can
sweet. Yeah. I'll definitely read it then.
Yeah, but yeah, it's great. I mean, it's got like some. It does a really good job of like being like, hey, this is what, you know, this is what it was like. It was different. Superhero comics were different. Westerns were, you know, like it was just.
They were there. They were on the newsstands. Yeah, at your drugstore, your convenience store, whatever.
Going with the nostalgia thing, we had a question from Pick, one of our YouTube watchers. He asked, what was the first comic each of you ever bought? I don't know if I can remember the actual first one, but the first one I remember buying was Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew. I remember buying that off of, and Pick, this will make you laugh because you're my nephew and you remember the 7-Eleven by Grandma's house. I bought that comic at that 7-Eleven off of a spinner rack, which used to be in those stores and held comics. And I don't know, I'm trying to think, I don't know what year that would have been. Not that long ago. I mean, not, you know, I wasn't like 10, so it certainly was. I don't think it was the first comic I ever bought, but it's just the one that I can remember.
I actually have my first comic.
Sure, you do.
I do.
I'll be honest.
I bought it used at a baseball card and comic shop, and it was because I was a Doctor Who fan, and I saw that, and that's why I still have it, just because I was always a collector at heart. And yeah, that was the first comic I bought.
I honestly can't remember. I mean, I got so many secondhand comics that it all kind of mixes together and that I don't remember. I mean, I remember a memory of actually buying a comic that I have that from when I was a kid. I used to go to, when I would go to Fleet Farm with my dad, they would have Spider-Man digests. And to make me not annoy him the whole time, he'd get one for me at the beginning, and I would sit in the cart and read like the Spider-Man digest. Nice. Like, or I would get a Mad magazine or whatever was there. And then as far as like other superhero comics, I don't know. I got so many secondhand that I just felt like I had a huge like box of things, and I can't quite remember like when I started getting some on my own or when like I worked my way through all the ones I just like the old tattered ones I got. So that, you know, once we get into the, you know, late 80s, I remember getting some Justice League stuff when it was the Wahaha Justice League. Remember dropping some of my precious allowance on that, but I'm sure that's not the first thing I ever got.
Yeah, like I said, I would have been 12, I think, when Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew came out, and when it was on the stands, I think I just turned 12, or it might have been 11. So it could have been the first comic that I ever personally bought myself. But it is a memory of like I remember seeing that and going, oh wow, what, you know, and I mean being 11 or 12 years old, it was like, what, superpowered rabbits and dog, you know, dog. It's like right in my wheelhouse. Come on.
My son loves that showcase of the Captain characters. Yeah,
it's funny. It was Looney Tunes. I mean, I grew up on the Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, and it was Looney Tunes meets, you know, the Justice League. So it was like,
it was awesome.
Yeah. Now the first back issue I ever bought was, I talked about this the other day. Well, the first comic I ever bought off of a wall at a comic shop was Conan the Barbarian #1, which I still have that.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, right?
Huh? Yeah, I talked about that last week. But then I remember like the first like back issue I bought it out of a long box was Invaders #1.
Ah.
Yeah. And I believe I still have that, but I'm not sure.
I just know my grail was, you know, after the Doctor Who stuff, and I collected all those. Then I discovered the X-Men, and it was, yeah, I think I had everything from about issue 104 to like 200 something. So that was, which I then sold all of those to pay to go to college, which I guess was,
well, that was a waste of money.
What a waste of money.
You went to ISU.
No, I did.
It couldn't have cost that much.
I did not go to ISU. I went to SIU.
Sorry.
SIU. We are going to try and keep our episodes to an hour, and we are at an hour 2.
We're over the limit. We got to go. Bye.
Market 0. You're over the line, Sal.
Huh?
You're over the line. Market 0.
Market 0. That's right.
So
you're entering a world of hurt, Donnie.
Our boys didn't die in Vietnam for us to be able to go over an hour on these shows. All right, so let's wrap this one up. We'll be back next week. We're talking about doing some supplemental episodes, maybe some more information about that coming out soon. So you may be able to hear a little bit more of us, but in smaller chunks, I think, right?
Yeah, who knows? Well, yeah, we might do some more stuff.
Maybe.
I was thinking maybe doing, well, I used to do like driving in my car ones, but I don't know if anyone wants to listen to that.
Yelling at Chicago traffic.
Yeah. We'll figure out something, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll see my TikTok videos starting this week. It's gonna be
those are gonna be huge.
They're absolutely huge. I got to figure out what TikTok is first. All right, so check out Tom's Trade Talk books. It's the House of L.
House of L book 1.
Yep, it's on Hoopla. We've got a bunch of new comics to talk about next week. Once again, check us out on all of the social media outlets. Please email the show. We love hearing from listeners. You can contact us at info@aroundcomics.com. And we like the live interaction during shows. We record every Tuesday at about 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Kill lock.
I
feel like we're kind of in a kill lock together, the three of us.
Yeah.
We've been doing this show.
read the Alan Moore pitch for Twilight of the.
I'm gonna.
Because it's like, oh man, he used to really like comics. He seemed to spend a lot of time thinking about it.
He got old.
Well, I think he
jaded like
I think he's the kind of guy who spends a lot of time thinking about anything that he's gonna think about.
He does make a joke in it at one point. He's like, I didn't take any breaths in that last paragraph.
That's he's a funny guy, and people don't think of him as being, always serious. But man, like his early comics, he wrote like comedy comics. He's a funny dude.
The greatest loss in the history of comics, my friends. The greatest loss.
What's that?
Alan Moore.
Well, I think he gave us enough.
Never.
Go live your life, Alan.
No, keep writing comics. Churn them out.
Do you like comic book movies, Alan Moore?
All right. We'll be back next week. In the meantime,
in between time,
we'll be everywhere in
and around comics.
I die, you die.
You better hope not, because I'm older than both of you.
I'm in better shape than both of us, though. Thanks, Vic.
Comics.